It was the first day of the new semester at Riverside High, a school known not just for its achievements, but for the chaos that brewed within its walls after the final bell. Teachers came and went like passing storms, each one leaving faster than the last, unable to handle the rowdy senior class of 12B. Their reputation for breaking teachers' spirits had become a legend. And when word spread that a new teacher was joining, young, strict-looking, and surprisingly calm, everyone in the corridor whispered, "She won't last a week." Her name was Miss Claire Bennett, mid-30s, sharp eyes behind subtle glasses, and a voice that carried quiet authority. Yet, there was something about her that didn't quite fit the mold of a schoolteacher. Maybe it was the way she scanned the hallways, observing, as if she was more interested in the students' patterns than their grades. That morning, as she entered the classroom, laughter echoed from the back where the self-proclaimed kings of 12B sat: Ryan, the tall, athletic bully, and his sidekicks Leo and Marcus, who smirked at every new teacher like a challenge waiting to be won. "Good morning, class," Claire greeted with a soft smile. No one responded. A paper ball hit the whiteboard behind her. She didn't flinch. Instead, she picked it up, unfolded it, read something scribbled inside, a crude joke about her, and then calmly said, "Whoever wrote this seems to need attention. I'll make sure they get plenty." The room fell quiet. For the first time, someone had replied to their mockery not with anger, but with control. It was new. It was unsettling. Over the next few days, Ms. Bennett tried her best to teach, but every lesson was interrupted by whispers, laughter, and cruel tricks. Someone once poured glue on her chair. Another time, her car tires were slashed. She never complained, never reported. She only looked around the class with those steady eyes that seemed to see through everyone. The students grew irritated. Why wasn't she breaking down like the others? Why didn't she scream or quit? Ryan, who took pride in being the leader of mischief, decided she needed to be taught a lesson. One afternoon, after the last bell rang, Ryan and his group stayed behind pretending to clean up. Ms. Bennett was packing her papers when Leo quietly locked the classroom door. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Ryan stepped forward, grinning. "You think you're special, don't you? You think you can just walk in here and boss us around like you own the place?" Claire slowly placed her books down, her expression unreadable. "I don't think that," she replied softly. "I know it." The boys laughed, circling her like wolves. "Lady, you've got guts," Marcus sneered. "Let's see how much guts you have when things get real." They pushed a desk aside, blocking her exit. Ryan approached her closer, his voice low, threatening. "You better quit before we make you regret ever coming here." But then, something changed in her eyes. The softness vanished. Her tone dropped, measured and deliberate. "Ryan, Leo, Marcus. I know exactly what you've been doing. The vandalism, the bullying, the online harassment. I know where you meet after school, what you sell behind the gym, and who your buyers are." Their smirks faded. What are you talking about?" Leo stammered. Claire's calm voice filled the silent room. "You thought no one noticed, didn't you? The school thinks you're just troublemakers. But I know the truth. And the truth always finds a way out." Ryan tried to laugh it off. "You're crazy. You can't prove anything." Claire stepped closer until she was just a foot away. "Oh, I already did." In that moment, everything shifted. The woman they thought was just another nervous teacher reached into her coat pocket and pulled out something none of them expected, a pair of steel handcuffs. The metallic click echoed in the room like thunder. The boys froze. "What the hell is this?" Marcus whispered. Claire's expression hardened. "This," she said, locking eyes with Ryan, "is your wake-up call." With one swift move, she twisted Ryan's wrist behind his back, snapped the cuffs, and pushed him against the wall. "You're under arrest for possession, intimidation, and assault." Leo and Marcus backed away, stunned. "Wait, what?" "You're a teacher," Ryan shouted, struggling against her grip. Claire leaned close and whispered, "No. I'm the arresting officer." The entire illusion shattered. The calm, quiet teacher had vanished. In her place stood Detective Claire Bennett, an undercover officer working with the city's youth crime division. She had been planted at Riverside High after reports of drugs and extortion linked to students. Her first week had been an investigation in disguise. "You played your part well," she said coldly as she radioed backup through a small device hidden under her sleeve. "Now it's my turn." The door burst open moments later as two plainclothes officers entered, securing Leo and Marcus before they could run. The stunned faces of students peeking from the hallway captured everything: the disbelief, the fear, the awe. The school had thought Ms. Bennett was just another fragile teacher. In truth, she was a protector in disguise. As the officers led the boys out, Ryan turned back, his face pale, his arrogance gone. "Why us?" he muttered. Claire looked at him with something that wasn't anger, but disappointment. "Because you still had a choice," she said quietly. "But you used it to hurt others." She turned back to her desk, picking up the scattered papers, as the last echoes of footsteps faded. The room was silent now, almost peaceful. That night, the news spread like wildfire through the school. Some students felt guilty for laughing at her, others whispered in awe that she had been undercover all along. The next morning, when she walked into class, everyone stood up, not out of fear, but respect. "Good morning, class," she said again, with that same soft smile. This time, every voice in the room replied, "Good morning, Ms. Bennett." As the day ended, she looked out the window at the setting sun and whispered to herself, "Sometimes, justice wears the face of patience." She knew her mission wasn't over. There were still others, silent victims, hidden crimes, and broken lives waiting to be mended. And so, she decided to stay, not as an officer, but as a real teacher this time. Because maybe, just maybe, the classroom was another kind of battlefield, one where hearts could be changed instead of punished. And for everyone watching this story, remember, strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it stands quietly, waiting for the right moment to act. Ms. Bennett didn't just catch criminals, she proved that courage is not about force, but about standing firm in the face of cruelty. So, if you believe in justice, in kindness, and in second chances, don't forget to subscribe and join us for the next chapter, where we uncover what happens when the hunted become the helpers. Because Ms. Bennett's story has only just begun. The next morning after the arrest, the entire atmosphere of Riverside High had changed. The same halls that once echoed with taunts and laughter now felt heavy with whispers and regret. Students walked more quietly, eyes darting toward room 12B, the room where everything had changed. Ms. Claire Bennett, now known to everyone as Detective Bennett, sat at her desk grading papers as if nothing had happened. Her calm composure confused many. How could she come back so soon after exposing herself as an undercover officer? But for her, this wasn't over. Her mission had two faces, the law's justice and the heart's redemption. She had caught the bullies, yes, but she had seen something deeper in Ryan's eyes that day. Behind the arrogance and cruelty, there had been fear, desperation, and maybe even pain. And Claire Bennett had learned something over the years: people don't become monsters for no reason. Sometimes, they're just reflections of their broken world. That afternoon, the principal called her into his office. "Ms., or should I say, Detective Bennett," he began, trying to sound composed. "We had no idea you were sent here by the department. The students are still in shock." Claire smiled faintly. "I wasn't here to shock them, sir. I was here to protect them." The principal sighed, rubbing his temples. "The parents are demanding explanations. Reporters are outside. And the board, they're unsure if you should remain in class." She nodded. "I understand. But if I may, I'd like to finish what I started." He frowned. "You mean teaching?" "Yes," she replied firmly. "Because the real work isn't done when you arrest the guilty. It's done when you help them become better." The principal didn't have an answer to that. He only nodded, almost humbled by her conviction. Meanwhile, Ryan sat in a detention facility downtown. The arrogance that once defined him was gone. He stared at the gray wall, remembering every word she said, "Because you still had a choice." Those words haunted him. For the first time, he saw himself not as a king of chaos, but as a boy who had lost control of his own life. His father had left when he was 12, his mother worked double shifts, and no one had ever told him he was capable of more than anger. But that woman, the teacher he tried to humiliate, had looked at him differently. She didn't hate him. She pitied him. That thought burned him deeper than any punishment could. Days turned into weeks. Claire returned to her classroom, resuming lessons with quiet grace. Students who once mocked her now listened intently. Her lessons weren't just about literature or history anymore, they were about life, choices, empathy, courage. One day, she stood before the board and wrote a single sentence: "It's never too late to change the story." Then she turned to her students. "Everyone has a past," she said, "but that past doesn't have to write your ending." A girl in the front row, who used to laugh during pranks, raised her hand timidly. "Miss, do you think even Ryan can change?" Claire smiled softly. "Especially Ryan." Unknown to the students, Claire had been visiting the detention center after school. Not as an officer, but as a teacher. She volunteered to lead rehabilitation sessions for troubled youth. The first time she walked into that gray room and saw Ryan sitting among other offenders, he couldn't even look her in the eye. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered. "I'm the reason your class was hell." She sat across from him, calm as ever. "I know," she said. "But I'm not here to remind you of that. I'm here to ask what you plan to do next." Ryan's fists clenched. "What do you mean?" "You've got time in there," she said. "You can spend it blaming everyone, or you can use it to rebuild who you are." He scoffed. "You think it's that easy?" "No," she said softly. "But it's possible. And that's all that matters." Each visit, she brought books, journals, and simple assignments, not about grammar, but about reflection. "Write about the day you first felt angry," she told him once. "Not the day you fought. The day you felt it." At first, he refused. But slowly, words began to fill the pages. Anger, loneliness, betrayal, every emotion he'd buried came pouring out. Claire read them quietly, never judging, only guiding. "You're not your mistakes," she told him. "But you are responsible for what you do next." Those words planted a seed. Ryan began helping in the center's workshop, teaching others to fix broken furniture, learning to fix himself in the process. Months passed. When he was finally released, he didn't return to his old friends, they'd vanished, scattered by the arrests. Instead, he showed up one rainy morning outside Riverside High, holding a folder of apology letters. He stood at the gates, drenched, waiting until Ms. Bennett arrived. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly, though there was no anger in her tone. He shook his head. "I needed to say thank you." He handed her the letters. "For you, the principal, everyone I hurt. I can't fix what I did, but I can start by owning it." For the first time, Claire saw in his eyes something she'd never seen before: accountability. And beneath that, hope. She took the letters, nodding slowly. "That's a good start, Ryan. But don't thank me. Thank yourself for choosing different." Later that day, she shared his letters with the class. Some cried, others sat silently, realizing that redemption wasn't just a word, it was real, living proof that people could change. Claire ended the class that day with a message that reached far beyond those four walls. Every bully, every victim, every bystander, each one has a story. The question is, do you want to keep living in your old chapter, or are you brave enough to write a new one? By the end of the semester, Riverside High wasn't the same school anymore. Students had started a kindness initiative called Project Rebuild, inspired by Ryan's story. They volunteered at shelters, tutored younger kids, and even raised funds for anti-bullying programs. Claire often stood back, watching quietly, her heart full. She had come undercover to catch criminals, but she stayed to create change. One evening, as she packed her bag after class, Ryan appeared at the door again, this time in a volunteer uniform. "They said you needed help setting up for the event," he said shyly. She smiled, gesturing to the stack of boxes. "Grab the heavy ones." As they worked, he looked around the classroom that once witnessed his worst moment. "It's weird," he said. "I used to hate this room. Now it feels like the place I finally learned something real." Claire paused, then said softly, "Sometimes the hardest classrooms are the ones life builds for us." He nodded, understanding every word. When the event ended, the principal took the stage. "Tonight," he announced, "we celebrate not just our students, but the teacher who reminded us what strength truly means." The hall erupted in applause. Claire felt humbled, almost overwhelmed. Ryan stood among the students, clapping the loudest. He didn't see her as a cop anymore, he saw her as the person who gave him back his life. After everyone left, Claire sat alone in the quiet gym, the faint sound of rain outside. She took out her badge, the same one that once defined her, and placed it beside her teaching notebook. For years, she had thought justice meant arrests and handcuffs. Now she understood it meant something far greater: healing. She whispered to herself, sometimes, the strongest arrests aren't the ones that put people behind bars, but the ones that free them from their own chains. The next morning, she wrote one final quote on the classroom board before the bell rang: "Justice without compassion is punishment. Compassion without justice is weakness." But together, they change lives. And that's what she had done. She changed lives. As the story of Ms. Bennett and Ryan spread online, people everywhere felt inspired: parents, teachers, even officers. They called her the teacher of justice, a symbol of strength wrapped in gentleness. And as she looked out over her class one last time before the summer break, she smiled at her students and said, "Remember, you don't have to wear a badge to do the right thing. You just have to be brave enough to care." So to everyone watching this, if you've ever felt powerless, remember this story. True power isn't in fighting back, it's in standing for what's right, even when no one else does. Ms. Bennett proved that kindness can break walls stronger than steel, and forgiveness can rewrite any ending. If her story inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this message. Because somewhere out there, another Ms. Bennett is walking into a classroom, another Ryan is waiting for a chance to change, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be the one to help them find it.